Chapter 769. Cemetery. Under the gray, overcast sky, a light rain fell continuously. The sound of wooden clogs clattering against the ground echoed as three figures walked along the damp bluestone path, each holding a red paper umbrella, making their way toward the distant cemetery. The appearance of these three individuals immediately drew the attention of everyone visiting the cemetery to pay their respects. They turned to look at the three figures and began to discuss quietly among themselves. In this cemetery filled with people in black suits, solemn and dignified, the three individuals dressed in black and red, blue and gray and yellow and white floral yucatas, walked side by side under their red umbrellas. Behind them, the logo of the Black Wutong Club was printed, with two lines of large text written below in white marker. The Black Wutong Club welcomes you. Starting tomorrow, all drinks will be 5% off. The text written in white marker had already faded, and the contact number and address of the club below it were completely illegible. However, even if they could see it, there would only be a desolate ruin left. The Black Wutong Club was destined to exist only in the past because the man who supported this establishment had already left forever. The three figures passed through the public cemetery, walking along the path lined with falling cherry blossoms, heading deeper inside. This cemetery was divided into two circles. The outer circle was a public cemetery, while the inner circle was a private cemetery reserved for specific families. The arrangements and environment of the private cemetery were clearly much better than those outside. The three of them stopped simultaneously. In the distance, within the private cemetery, figures dressed in black kimono adorned with cherry blossoms were gathered at the outer circle, their heads bowed as if mourning something. These were all members of the Kazumatsuri family. In the core area of the private cemetery, before a grand and solemn tombstone, a white-haired boy stood side by side with a black-haired girl. The girl was 2 heads shorter than the boy, appearing particularly petite. She wore a solemn black kimono, her hair pinned up with a cherry blossom hairpin, and her delicate fragile face was streaked with tears. In her hand she clutched an opened envelope, her body trembling uncontrollably. "Dad." Yuzuru Hana pressed her lips together, her eyes red. She crouched down and gently caressed the cold tombstone. "I haven't given you and little brother a good life yet. Why did you have to leave?" Yuzuru Hana crouched on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. This cemetery was reserved for her using the financial power and status of the Kazumatsuri family. Very few people in Japan could enjoy such treatment. But at this moment her heart was filled only with endless sorrow. She had become the head of the Kazumatsuri family to ensure that she, along with Yuzuruha Kurotetsu and Yuzuruha Takashi, could live a life free from worry, so her father wouldn't have to struggle for a living, and her brother could go to school happily like other children his age. Now she had everything. She could provide her father and brother with the life they desired. But now, all of this could only be exchanged for a tombstone and a spacious cemetery. This was not what she wanted. "Sister." Yuzuruha Takashi looked at Yuzuru Hana, who was curled up in a ball, opened his mouth and hoarsely said, "I'm sorry, it's my fault. I couldn't save Dad." Yuzuru Hana wiped away her tears and shook her head, her disheveled hair swaying gently with her movement. She stood up, looked at the boy who was much taller than her, stood on her tiptoes and reached out her hand as if to touch his head, but could only reach his chin at most. Yuzuruha Takashi was taken aback and slowly crouched down. Yuzuru Hana's small hand gently stroked Yuzuruha Takashi's white hair, and through her tear-streaked face she managed to squeeze out a smile. "It's not Takashi's fault. You've done very well. Just being able to stand here healthy, Dad would be very happy. Buy vitamins and supplements." But Yuzuruha Takashi wanted to say something more. "Dad has worked so hard for us for so many years. Now he's just tired, he just misses Mom." Yuzuru Hana turned to look at the tombstone. "We can't selfishly keep Dad by our side. After all, we've grown up, haven't we?" Yuzuruha Takashi remained silent for a long time before nodding heavily. "Takashi." "What is it, sister?" "Dad is gone, so from now on I will take care of you in place of Dad." Yuzuru Hana looked at him with tearful yet smiling eyes. "Don't think that just because I'm shorter than you I'm not capable." Yuzuruha Takashi stared blankly at Yuzuru Hana's smile, and for some reason, a warm feeling surged in his heart. Perhaps this was what Dad meant by family affection. Yuzuruha Takashi smiled slightly. "I believe in you, sister." While they were talking, the three figures in floral yukatas had already passed by the Kazamatsuri family members and arrived before the tombstone. Brother Shikiya, Brother Amamiya, Brother Kogain. Yuzuru Hana was slightly taken aback upon seeing them. She quickly wiped away all her tears and stood before the tombstone, bowing respectfully to the three. Did you come to see Dad? Yuzuru Takashi didn't understand the etiquette, but he still followed Yuzuru Hana and bowed. Amamiya Haruki closed his umbrella and nodded. We also came to pay our respects to Uncle Kayasuke. Lin Shikiya looked at Yuzuru Hana with concern. Are you okay? I'm fine. Yuzuru Hana shook her head. You don't need to worry about me, Brother Shikiya. I'm already an adult. Lin Shikiya stared at her for a long time before responding with a sound of acknowledgement. Kogain crouched down and gently touched the tombstone, deep sadness reflected in his eyes. Although he was merely the soul of the blade, Mist Eye, he had been by Yuzuru Kurotetsu's side for a long time. Yuzuru Kurotetsu had never treated him merely as a blade soul. Even at the Black Wutong Club, Yuzuru Kurotetsu had arranged a separate room for him to rest, paid him a salary and cooked for him. In Yuzuru Kurotetsu's eyes, Kogain was more like a junior. Many times it wasn't him protecting the blade master, but rather Yuzuru Kurotetsu protecting him. So today, no matter what, he had to come to bid farewell to Yuzuru Kurotetsu in the form of a human. The three of them paid their respects at Yuzuru Kurotetsu's tomb for a long time, and by the time they left the cemetery the sky had already darkened. Lin Shikiya and Amamiya Haruki walked side by side on the road. Kogain had already returned to Mist Eye, held in Lin Shikiya's hand. Before leaving this world, Yuzuru Kurotetsu had personally placed Mist Eye by Yuzuru Takashi's bedside, but in the letter he specifically instructed that this blade was meant for Lin Shikiya. This was a promise he had made with Lin Shikiya. After a long while, Lin Shikiya and Amamiya Haruki arrived at the entrance of the club. I should be leaving now, Lin Shikiya said slowly. Chapter 770. When will you come back? Akimura Haruki fell silent for a moment. Will you come back? Perhaps not. Then safe travels. After a brief silence, Lin Chie removed all the Hozuki blades from his waist and handed them all to Akimura Haruki, leaving only the Zanbai for himself. There were 5 blades in total: Heisho, Yubing, Duo-e, Mitu, and Shinin. I'll return your Yubing to you, along with Kogen Yashiki's Shin. I was a bit rough when borrowing the blades, so please apologize to him for me. As for the Heisho and Mitu, I'll lend them to you for now. Once you complete the 9 blades unification and find a way to save everyone in the human circle, you can return them to me. Stacked together, the 5 blades looked quite impressive. Akimura Haruki did not reach out to take all the blades at once. Instead, he first took the 2 that belonged to him and Kogen Yashiki, then asked, I can accept these 2, but if you're going back to your country, won't the Heisho, Duo-e, and Mitu be of great help to you as well? Is it really okay to lend them all to me? When you lent me Yubing, you didn't have so many concerns, Lin Chie smiled slightly. You need them more than I do. Akimura Haruki stood there in a daze. He opened his mouth, seemingly wanting to say something more, but Lin Chie continued. Moreover, I don't like relying on external objects for combat power. While the Hozuki blades are powerful and can allow me to match the strength of the Klein realm in a short time when used together, that power ultimately comes from the blades, not from myself. Relying too much on them isn't good for my advancement. When I can reach that realm through my own strength, then borrowing the power of these blades will truly be the icing on the cake. After hearing these words, Akimura Haruki did not insist any further and nodded. I understand. Once I complete that task, I will personally return them to you. With the 5 blades you have, plus Yuzuru Harina's, Chizuru, and Shuda's Buki, we already have 7 of the Hozuki 9 blades. We just need to find the other 2 to achieve the 9 blades unification. Lin Chie patted Akimura Haruki on the shoulder and smiled. I have a feeling that day will come soon. Akimura Haruki sighed. I hope so. After bidding farewell to Akimura Haruki, Lin Chie stepped into the club. As soon as he pushed the door open, several figures suddenly surrounded him in a circle. Bang! Bang! 2 colorful confetti cannons erupted, enveloping the bewildered Lin Chie. The members of the Nightfall team each held a copy of a Black Phoenix flyer high above their heads, and Bai Li Pang Pang shouted loudly, warmly welcoming Mr. Chia, the dazzling new star of the host world, the friend of mature women, back to the team. Lin Chia. Lin Chia's expression gradually stiffened. Hokkaido. Ruins. Lin Chia and his 7 companions stopped under the Vermilion Torii Gate. Vice Captain, are you really not coming back with us? Lin Chia turned to look at Wu Xiangnan, who had brought them here, and asked in confusion. Wu Xiangnan shook his head. My mission isn't complete yet, so I won't be going back. I've marked the location of the ship for you, and the route back home has already been set. You just need to start it. By the way, take this back with you. Wu Xiangnan lowered his head, removed the silver nameplate hanging from his neck, and handed it to Lin Chia. An item that traverses through the mist? Lin Chia took it, his brow slightly furrowing. Vice Captain, without this, you won't be able to return to Daxiao. Anyway, I'll be staying here for a long time in the future, so keeping this is pointless, Wu Xiangnan said calmly. Once the main force of the Xie Society arrives and my mission is complete, I'll have them send me back. You don't need to worry. Lin Chia nodded thoughtfully and put the nameplate away. Once you return home, don't wander around. Go back to the Night Watch headquarters in Shoujing City first. Daxiao is not the same as it was 2 years ago. You're unfamiliar with the situation and it's easy to fall into danger. Wu Xiangnan reminded seriously. Daxiao is not the same as it was 2 years ago? Hearing this, the members of the Nightfall team were taken aback, confusion appearing in their eyes. The only one among them who had been to Daxiao was Jelan, but during that time she had been on standby at the Night Watch headquarters and was unaware of the other situations in Daxiao, let alone the others. Understood, Lin Chia nodded. After bidding farewell to Wu Xiangnan, the group turned to face the massive Vermilion Torii Gate, anticipation shining in their eyes. Finally, they could go home. Lin Chia patted his black trench coat, as if to shake off the dust accumulated in the human circle. He straightened his chest, a glimmer of determination flashing in his eyes, and slowly spoke. Let's go, we are going home. 7 figures stepped forward simultaneously into the Torii Gate. A flash of light passed and their forms completely vanished, leaving the entire ruins once again shrouded in silence. Kazama family. Head of the family, we received news that Mr. Asaba and the others have left. A member of the Kazama family approached the courtyard of the Japanese-style house and spoke. Inside the house, Yuzuru Harina was sitting in her study focused on reading and studying. Although she was now the head of the Kazama family, she was still just a 13-year-old child. While she was intelligent, her knowledge and perspective were insufficient to perfectly fulfill the responsibilities of the Kazama family head. She needed to learn. I understand, she replied. Just as the Kazama family member was about to leave, he suddenly seemed to remember something and asked again. Head of the family, what about that shop? Should we continue building it? Yuzuru Harina was taken aback. After a moment she put down her pen, stood up from the tatami mat and opened a window. Outside that window lay the ruins of Tokyo, and just a street away from the Kazama family, a massive building was already taking shape, standing out prominently amidst the ruins. That still under construction giant building was set to become the largest and most luxurious host club in all of Japan. Asaba Club. This club was personally ordered to be built by Yuzuru Harina, and it existed solely for one person. The image of Lin Chia resurfaced in Yuzuru Harina's mind and she sighed deeply. Weren't we supposed to do this? I want to make you the top host in Japan and now your stage is already being set up. Brother Chia, when will you be able to come back? Chapter 771. The Sunken Dragon Pass. Mist. Under the chaotic gray sky, the surging sea roared like thunder, and a blinding golden light rapidly ascended from the depths of the ocean, breaking the surface. As the golden light dissipated, 7 figures stood atop a golden long sword, floating amidst the rolling waves. Bai Li Pang Pang manipulated the Yaoguang while surveying the surroundings. Chia, where's that ship mentioned by Vice Captain Wu? It should be nearby. Lin Chia closed his eyes, his mental energy swiftly expanding, instantly covering several kilometers of the sea surface. After a moment he opened his eyes in confusion. Nothing? How could this be? The place we disembarked from is over there. Jelan looked around and pointed in a direction. The others followed her finger, but aside from the endless sea, there was nothing else in sight. Perhaps it was an attack from the mysterious beings of the deep sea that took or destroyed that ship, and Qingyu speculated. Lin Chia nodded thoughtfully. He extended his hand and gently beckoned in the void, causing endless clouds to coalesce from nothingness, rolling and surging beneath them. If there's no ship, we'll have to fly back ourselves. Lin Chia turned to the others. Does anyone know the way back? I have a rough idea of the direction, Jialon said. Though it might not be the same as the landing point designated by Vice Captain Wu, it will still lead us to the borders of Daxia. Bailey Pang Pang shrugged. That's fine as long as we can get to Daxia. It doesn't matter where we enter. In that case, let's go. Lin Chia activated the Jinduyan beneath him, swiftly lifting everyone into the sky, roaring away in the direction Jialon indicated. Daxia border. An invisible wall stood tall above the sea, like a massive glass city wall, blocking the rolling mist from entering Daxia. On the inner side of this invisible wall, an immense black iron city loomed like a mountain behind the borderline, serving as a maritime checkpoint separating Daxia from the mist, silently guarding the frontier. If Lin Chia and the others were here, they would surely be greatly shocked. Before they left Daxia, this area was still a vast expanse of sea. Not only was there no iron city, but even a small piece of solid ground was non-existent. In just 2 years, such a grand iron city had been established on the sea surface at the Daxia border. In terms of area, this iron city was at least 3 times the size of Tsongnan City, standing like a black pillar deeply embedded in the Daxia border, radiating a chilling black light under the sun. On the outer wall of this iron city, a line of enormous scarlet characters was engraved. 011. This is the Daxia A-level war checkpoint, numbered 011, code-named Chenglong Pass. At this moment, on the steel walls of Chenglong Pass, a figure draped in a dark red cloak was using binoculars to monitor the mist wall several kilometers away. Suddenly, he seemed to have spotted something, his eyes narrowing slightly. Amidst the rolling mist, a vague silhouette of a ship slowly sailed across the sea, passing through the invisible mist wall and entering Daxia territory. The silver-white hull shimmered in the sunlight, and a series of numbers was written on the right side of the ship. This is Chenglong Pass Point 6. A Daxia-manufactured ship has crossed the mist wall and is heading this way. The figure picked up the radio and said, "The number is received." The voice on the other end of the radio paused for a moment, seemingly verifying something. "That's right, that's our night watchman's ship. Entry is permitted." "Understood." Boom. On the surging sea, the black iron city wall emitted a thunderous roar as a heavy and massive gate slowly rose, guiding the ship floating on the sea into Chenglong Pass. Once the ship entered Chenglong Pass, the city wall gate closed again, and the entire sea area fell into silence once more. The ship followed the artificial waterway to the docking area of Chenglong Pass, and when it came to a stop, 3 figures draped in dark red cloaks were already waiting on the shore. "I am the vice captain of the original Daxia Night Watchman Team 066, Lucio. Please disembark and register your identities." A man stepped forward and addressed the ship. The ship floated silently in the waterway with no one stepping out or responding, enveloped in silence. Lucio frowned and repeated, "Please disembark and register your identities." Still, there was no response from the ship. Lucio sensed something was off and immediately waved his hand. The other 2 night watchmen quickly leaped onto the deck from the shore and began searching the ship. 2 minutes later, they stood on the deck with bewildered expressions. "Lu Gu, there's no one on this ship?" "To one." Lucio was taken aback. After personally searching the ship and confirming that there wasn't a single person aboard, his expression darkened. "No one on the ship? How did it return to Daxia?" He pondered for a moment, then decisively spoke. "This ship is suspicious. Lock it in Dock 3 and send experts to investigate. Xiao Jia, report this situation to headquarters and make it quick." "Yes." No one noticed that beneath the ship's shadow in the water, a figure draped in a silver robe slipped into Chenglong Pass like a ghost, disappearing from sight. Shangjing City. Wu Xiangnan and the other's ship returned to Chenglong Pass? There's no one on board. Zhuqing's brows furrowed upon hearing the report. "Yes, Commander Zhua." In front of Zhuqing's desk, a young man with a buzz cut held a document and said seriously, "Experts have already been sent to investigate Chenglong Pass. After thoroughly searching the traces left on the ship, They collected 4 different fingerprints. One fingerprint belongs to Wu Xiangnan, one to Jialon, and the other 2 belong to unidentified individuals. One of them should be a fingerprint left by a member of the S83, but if that's the case, whose is the 4th fingerprint? Suiqing pondered for a moment. Are there any signs of mysterious activities on the ship? None. The buzz-cut young man paused before continuing. Commander Zhou, could it be that someone accidentally activated the ship's autopilot system and then left? That's why the ship returned to Chenglong Pass along the predetermined route. Suiqing tapped his fingers lightly on the desk, his eyes narrowing. Moyu, remember, we are the decision-makers of the Night Watchman. No matter what situation we face, we must always prepare for the worst. How about this? Let Guan go to Chenglong Pass and see what exactly happened. Chapter 772. The Hidden Mirror Disaster. Mr. Guan. Chen Mou was slightly taken aback upon hearing the name. Commander Zhou, is it really necessary to mobilize a top-tier human powerhouse for such a trivial matter? A trivial matter? Suiqing shook his head. Mou, you should be well aware of the current situation in the Great Xia. Those divine nations shrouded in mist have already begun to take action against us. The large-scale inducement of powerful mysterious forces from abroad to invade the Great Xia's borders is just their first step. They aim to wear down our military strength and even use the ensuing chaos to probe the depths of our divine beings. We cannot intervene in the divine war, but it is our supreme mission to ensure the safety of the Great Xia's citizens and territory. The Shenlong Pass is one of the 12 A-class war strongholds. Although these strongholds are not yet fully completed and the war mode has not been officially activated, with only a small number of personnel stationed there, they still fulfill the duty of monitoring and guarding the Great Xia's borders. Half a year ago, the first disaster-level mysterious beast tide sounded the alarm for us. Just a couple of days ago, the Xia Society brought intelligence indicating that a second disaster-level beast tide seems to be brewing in the mist. This period is too sensitive. We cannot overlook any potential dangers. Chen Mou nodded. I understand. I will go and ask Mr. Guan to take action. Just as Chen Mou was about to leave, he seemed to remember something and walked back. Commander Zhou, according to the higher-up's suggestion, after entering a state of readiness, the number of new recruits for the Night Watchman this time is 3 times that of previous years. The personnel list has already been released. Please take a look. Chen Mou took out a document from his pocket and handed it to Suiqing. Suiqing took the document and read it carefully. After a moment he nodded. No issues. Have the venue and instructor problems been resolved? The venue issues have been settled, but the problem lies with the instructors, Chen Mou said helplessly. Since the number of new recruits has suddenly increased so much, if we continue to have the original fixed team of instructors train them, the numbers will be quite mismatched. With the limited number of instructors, it will be difficult to train the new recruits effectively, and among this batch of new recruits, there are quite a few troublemakers which may lead to insufficient deterrence. However, we are currently in a state of readiness, and the Night Watchman teams across the country are short-staffed, making it impossible to mobilize active-duty Night Watchmen on a large scale to take on the role of instructors. Suiqing pondered for a long time and then nodded slightly. I understand. In that case, issue a transfer order to the Kamask team, allowing them to temporarily serve as special instructors for the new recruit training camp. When they are not on missions, let them assist the instructors in training the new recruits. Having a special team stationed here is far more efficient than simply increasing the number of instructors, and it can also set a good example for these new recruits. Mask team. Chen Mou was taken aback. Commander Zhou, this mask team has to guard the Jialon Pass and also deal with the mysterious threats. Their schedule is already quite full. They may not have time to serve as special instructors. I can personally oversee the Jialon Pass. Suiqing slowly stood up from his seat. It's just a change of location for work. It's not a big deal. Relatively speaking, the future of the Night Watchman is more important. Upon hearing this, Chen Mou's eyes showed a hint of emotion and he nodded heavily. All right, I will arrange it right away. Great Xia border. Shenlong Pass. Send Mr. Guan over? Lu Qiu was surprised upon hearing his companion's report. Is it really necessary to involve a top-tier human powerhouse for something like this? I'm puzzled too. It's just an unmanned ship returning automatically. This seems like overkill, his companion chuckled helplessly. But since it's a direct order from Commander Zhua, we just need to cooperate. Lucio nodded. I understand. When can we expect Mr. Guan to arrive? This afternoon. All right, check all the instruments and equipment to ensure they are functioning properly. Also, even if a top-tier human powerhouse is coming, we must remain vigilant about the situation at the Misty Border. We cannot let our guard down. Understood. As the two were conversing, no one noticed a silver figure quietly gliding past the office window's reflection. Mirror World. The silver-robed Oracle envoy Mirror Disaster walked calmly through the deserted Shenlong Pass with his hands in his pockets. He glanced at the two night watchmen conversing in the mirror and then shifted his gaze elsewhere. He had no interest in what they were discussing, because he couldn't understand it. In his eyes, there was only the grand and massive steel stronghold. Mirror Disaster roamed the entire Shenlong Pass, eventually stepping onto the steel city wall, gazing at the rolling misty border in the distance, frowning in confusion as he muttered to himself. From a technological perspective, the communication and automation levels here are not high at all, yet the power of the firearms far exceeds that of the Pure Land. Such terrifying firepower reserves, yet only a handful of people are stationed here. What exactly is this place meant to guard against? This stronghold, what is it protecting against? Mirror Disaster thought for a long time but couldn't come up with an answer. He shook his head, pushing those thoughts aside. However, the fact that such a heavily fortified stronghold is only manned by a few weak ants indicates that this country places greater emphasis on the use and development of firearms, while the combat effectiveness of its personnel is extremely low. Truly, weak. Mirror Disaster looked down at the few night watchmen inside Shenlong Pass, a mocking smile appearing at the corner of his mouth. The threat of firearms is definitely not an issue for the Pure Land. After all, Oracle envoys are not easily dealt with by guns and cannons. In fact, Mirror Disaster is confident that he alone could easily breach this stronghold from the inside and kill everyone stationed here. A silver halo faintly lit up in his left eye. If the Pure Land is to attack this country, the first obstacle will be this steel stronghold. Since I have already infiltrated, I will find an opportunity to completely destroy it and clear the last barrier. First, cut off the low-level communication systems, then take control of the automation permissions here. Once this place is completely sealed off, I can begin unilateral slaughter. Information cannot be transmitted out and no one can escape. For a short time, no one will know that this place is already under my control. After scanning the entire layout of Shenlong Pass, Mirror Disaster quickly locked onto a certain building, and with a flicker of his figure he vanished from the spot. Chapter 773. Let's play together joyfully. The Psychiatric Hospital of the Gods. Lin Chia walked leisurely down the corridor in a white lab coat, as the nurses passing by greeted him with a respectful nod and a "Good morning, Director." Lin Chia smiled and nodded slightly in return. He made his way straight to the director's office on the second floor, closed the door behind him, and opened a secret passage leading to the underground prison. In the pitch-black depths of the prison, Lin Chia walked calmly with his hands in his pockets. Eventually he stopped in front of a cell door. Seeing the figure inside, the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. Once again we meet Eightfold Mirror Spirit. Thunder Beast. Behind the sturdy bars, a deep blue cat lay quietly in the corner of the cell. Upon noticing Lin Chia's approach, its slit pupils narrowed slightly, and its fur bristled as it arched its back and stood up from the ground. Roar roar roar. Meow. The Thunder Beast opened its mouth, intending to roar fiercely, but after a moment of hoarseness, it only managed to let out a harmless meow. The Thunder Beast froze in place. Compared to the rampaging Thunder Beast that had wreaked havoc in Tokyo, its size had now shrunk countless times. The once mythical beast capable of destroying half of Tokyo with a single bite was now reduced to the size of an ordinary cat within this cell. Its fierce and intimidating appearance suddenly became inexplicably cute beneath its small and delicate form. Meow. The Thunder Beast growled fiercely at Lin Chia, believing itself to be intimidating. Lin Chia's mouth twitched slightly. He looked up at the panel floating behind the Thunder Beast. Criminal, Thunder Beast. Choice. As the mythological creature you personally killed, you have the right to decide its soul's fate. Choice 1. Directly obliterate its soul, causing it to completely vanish from the world. Choice 2. Allow it to reach a fear value of 60 towards you, and you can hire it as a hospital worker, providing care for patients while also offering you a degree of protection. Current fear value, 23-inch. As Lin Chia had expected after the Thunder Beast was killed, its soul was absorbed into the psychiatric hospital of the gods. This psychiatric hospital could imprison mythological-level beings. Lin Chia's gaze towards the deep blue cat suddenly became fervent. This was a genuine divine beast. Although its power did not reach that of a true deity, it could rival the strongest humans. This was the most powerful being he had imprisoned since acquiring the psychiatric hospital of the gods. If he could turn the Thunder Beast into his worker, he would have the opportunity to summon it in the future, becoming a formidable force. Recalling the scene of the Thunder Beast destroying Tokyo, Lin Chia's heart was filled with longing. No matter what, he had to make it his worker. Sensing Lin Chia's intense gaze, the Thunder Beast suddenly felt an ominous premonition. It instinctively took a half-step back but then remembered it was a divine beast. It opened its mouth and growled fiercely at Lin Chia. Meow. Looking at the beautiful deep blue cat, Lin Chia's heart melted a little. This only solidified his desire to recruit the Thunder Beast as a worker. This breed, this appearance, this voice. Even if it lacked divine beast-level combat power, having it as a mascot in the hospital would be great. But the problem was the Thunder Beast currently did not have enough fear value towards him. After all, in the Thunder Beast's eyes, Lin Chia's strength was no different from an ant encountered on the road, something that could be crushed with a mere spit. Although it had been killed by Lin Chia with a chopstick in Tokyo, that was not due to its own power. Simply relying on these factors was not enough to instill fear in it. Lin Chia began to think seriously. How could he make the Thunder Beast fear him? Fight. There was no way he could win. Scare? It was a divine beast from Takamagara. Who would scare whom was still uncertain. Lin Chia couldn't help but feel troubled. After pondering for a long time without coming up with a good solution, he decided to leave the dungeon temporarily and walk towards the hospital's courtyard. After all, the Thunder Beast was already locked up here. As long as he did not make a choice, it would be unable to escape. Lin Chia had plenty of time. Once back on the surface, Lin Chia walked straight to the center of the courtyard, sat down on the lush grass, and watched the busy nurses in the distance, his thoughts racing. The Thunder Beast. The Thunder Beast is a cat. What could make it feel afraid? Lin Chia fell into deep thought. At that moment, a small group of nurses came down from the second floor of the hospital. There were about 6 or 7 of them holding brooms, mops, disinfectants and fresheners, all wearing masks with expressions of utter disinterest. In front of them, a pug was strutting along in a black tailcoat, walking upright with its head held high. The tailcoat swayed slightly as it moved, and it had a broom resting on its shoulder, smeared with some indescribable substance. It licked its lips, its doggy mouth curling into a mischievous smile. It was Wang Kai, the head of the cleaning department at the psychiatric hospital of the gods. From the direction they were coming, it seemed they had just finished cleaning the toilets for the day and were heading home. Seeing that mischievous smile, Lin Chia suddenly recalled the scene from the dream created by Wang Kai, where he and it sat in a Western restaurant holding knives and forks, sharing a smile over their plates, and he felt a wave of nausea. Just as he was about to look away, something clicked in his mind, and his pupils constricted sharply. He quickly jumped up from the ground, excitement flashing in his eyes. He knew how to deal with the Thunder Beast now. A few minutes later, in the underground prison, Lin Chia, carrying a bewildered Wang Kai, walked through the dark narrow passage to stand before the Thunder Beast. In the corner of the cell, the Thunder Beast lay motionless on the ground. Upon seeing Lin Chia again, its expression turned ferocious once more. Wang Kai, I have a task for you. Lin Chia picked up the pug in the tailcoat, leaned in close to its ear and whispered something, his expression somewhat subtle. After hearing this, Wang Kai turned to look at the deep blue cat in the cell, its eyes gradually lighting up. To ensure you focus on your work, I will have to suspend your position as head of the cleaning department. You can't come out until you train it properly. Lin Chia gave Wang Kai an encouraging nudge. It licked its lips. No problem. Lin Chia held Wang Kai, lightly flicked his fingers, and a corner of the cell's bars opened automatically, tossing Wang Kai inside. Before signing the contract, Lin Chia could not release the Thunder Beast, but he could send other things in. Seeing a strange pug suddenly enter its territory, the Thunder Beast jumped up from the ground, its fur standing on end, and it growled fiercely at Wang Kai. "Don't be afraid, little kitty." Wang Kai stood upright in its black tailcoat, a mischievous smile curling at the corners of its mouth. "Let's have some fun together." Chapter 774. The Brewing of Killing Intent. In the next moment, the Thunder Beast was dragged into Wang Kai's dream crossing. Wang Kai inherited nearly all of the power of the murmurs and is itself at the Klein level. Among the caregivers in the entire Asylum of the Gods, it is undoubtedly the pinnacle of combat power. Although there are other Klein-level strong beings in the asylum, Wang Kai is different from them. Its Forbidden Ruins is Sequence 018, classified as the Fourth King Ruins, Dream Crossing. With the Fourth King Ruins, it can easily overpower other Klein beings like the Grey Sparrow and other strong entities. If it weren't for Wang Kai's rather unique preferences, the head of the security department would not be Hong Yen, but it instead. Perhaps the murmurs never imagined that their Fourth King Ruins would ultimately be transferred to a dog. With the Klein level and the enhancement of the Fourth King Ruins, Wang Kai could retreat unscathed even when facing the Thunder Beast at its peak. However, at this moment the Thunder Beast was trapped in its cell, unable to exert any of its power. In front of Wang Kai's dream crossing, the Thunder Beast completely lost its ability to resist. A few minutes after being dragged into the dream crossing, the Thunder Beast's limbs began to tremble uncontrollably, and it seemed to be dreaming of something with deep fear reflected in its chaotic eyes. After a while, Wang Kai seemed to have had its fill in the dream and voluntarily released the dream crossing. The Thunder Beast suddenly collapsed to the ground, violently vomiting, every hair on its body standing on end, wearing an expression of utter despair. It was a dignified spirit of the Eightfold Mirror, a divine beast of Takamagara, and it had never consumed so much in its life. Ugh. Lin Chia glanced at the panel. The Thunder Beast's fear level had risen to 30 points. Effective. The corners of Lin Chia's mouth lifted slightly. "Wang Kai, I'll leave it to you." Lin Chia waved at the satisfied Wang Kai and stepped toward the cell door. After all, the Thunder Beast is a mythical creature. Even though it had been tormented by Wang Kai, it couldn't be completely broken. To instill genuine fear of Lin Chia and Wang Kai in its heart would take some time. Woof. In the mist, sitting on the somersault cloud, Lin Chia slowly opened his eyes. "Where are we?" Jiang Er's voice came from the Bluetooth speaker at Qingyu's waist. "We should be close to crossing the sea area and reaching the vicinity of the Great Xia border." Qingyu calculated the route simply. "However, it's hard to determine the exact location on the Great Xia border." "That's fine. Once we enter the mist border we'll know." As soon as Lin Chia finished speaking, a series of faint low rumbles suddenly erupted from the mist in the distance. Everyone on the somersault cloud turned to look in that direction. Lin Chia's brow furrowed slightly. "Is that thunder?" Bai Li Pangpang looked up at the mist-covered sky in confusion. Although the sky is a bit overcast, there are no dark clouds. Where is the thunder coming from? "That's not thunder." Jialan looked in that direction, her expression serious. "That's the roar of the mysterious. There are many, at least over 400. When they overlap, it sounds like continuous thunder." 400 mysterious? Where did so many come from? Chao Yuan asked in confusion. No, Lin Chia seemed to sense something and spoke again. "It's not just 400. He extended his hand, pointing in a certain direction within the mist. "There, just within my perception range, there are 600 mysterious, and many more exceed my perception range. I can't calculate the exact number. Most of them are Chuan-level mysterious, but there are also a large number of sea-level and even limitless. However, I haven't seen any at the Klein level. The mysterious in the mist have a very strong territorial awareness, and their activity ranges are generally very scattered. It's impossible for such a large scale of mysterious to gather." Jialan stood by the cloud, gazing at the direction from which the thunder came, speaking with certainty. "Sister Lan, when did you become so familiar with the mist?" Bai Li Pangpang was taken aback. "If you drifted alone in the mist for over 2 years, you'd become as familiar as I am." Bai Li Pangpang stood there in a daze. Lin Chia looked at Jialon with a complex expression for a long time before shifting his gaze. In any case, the area is densely populated with mysterious, which is very dangerous. We may need to take a detour. Everyone had no objections. After all, with the speed of the somersault cloud, even if they detoured around this large area of mysterious, it wouldn't take much extra time. I feel something is off. And Qingyu pushed up her glasses, frowning as she spoke. Such a large-scale gathering of mysterious is definitely not a natural phenomenon. It's just like when we were brought into the mist by the wind god in Anta County. At that time, Amon left a curse which caused a large number of mysterious to gather. Could this time be a similar situation? You mean a deity is deliberately gathering these mysterious in the mist? Jiang Er immediately understood Qinyu's implication. And don't you find it strange? Qingyu pointed into the distance. The place where they are gathering is right near the Great Xia border. Upon hearing this, the expressions of the members of the Nightfall team grew serious. We should speed up. Lin Chia narrowed his eyes. Great Xia. Something might be about to happen. Great Xia border. Qianlong Pass. Boom. A shocking explosion suddenly erupted from the iron fortress, with surging flames rolling up into the sky, accompanied by thick black smoke. A piercing alarm sounded within Qianlong Pass. What happened? Why did it explode? Enemy attack. It's from the direction of the communication tower. Oh no, have enemies infiltrated? Impossible. There have always been people watching the border area. There hasn't been any mysterious or humans approaching here. The military forces stationed at Qianlong Pass quickly gathered toward the direction of the explosion, several dark red figures sweeping across the sky, arriving at the surging flames in an instant. Lu Qiu looked at the communication towers completely engulfed in flames, his expression extremely grim. It wasn't the mysterious that did this. He said firmly. The ones who blew up these communication towers must be humans, and they are professionals with a deep understanding of communication technology. These explosions have completely severed our communication bridge with the outside world. Humans. The night watchman beside him looked puzzled. How is that possible? Could there be a traitor among us? Lu Qiu turned back, scanning the faces of everyone gathered around him, his brow furrowing tighter. That possibility is low. Everyone inside Qianlong Pass has their own responsibilities. If anyone leaves their post casually, they would be quickly discovered. There shouldn't have been time to blow up the communication towers. Chapter 775. Guan takes action. Who else could there be? The detection equipment hasn't found any signs of living creatures approaching the Qianlong Pass at all. To ensure the safety of Qianlong Pass, we even dispersed the fish schools in the surrounding waters. What other means could infiltrate Qianlong Pass? There is. Lu Qiu seemed to have thought of something and suddenly looked in a certain direction. Today another thing entered Qianlong Pass. His companion was taken aback, then quickly realized. That unmanned ship? I knew there was something wrong with that ship. Lu Qiu's mind raced as he quickly spoke to those around him. Since that person knew to cut off communications first, they must have made meticulous plans. They want to bury us all here without us noticing at headquarters, so their next step should be to completely seal off all exits here to prevent any stragglers from escaping. Quick! To the control room. As soon as Lu Qiu finished speaking, all the sentinels inside Qianlong Pass moved simultaneously, rushing toward the control room. But they were still a step too late. Just as they arrived outside the control room, an explosion occurred again, and the control room was engulfed in flames. Lu Qiu's expression turned extremely grim. Damn it, his companion cursed angrily. If it weren't for Qianlong Pass still being under construction and the insufficient personnel stationed here, how could they? Enough. Lu Qiu interrupted him, placing a hand on the knife at his waist and drawing it suddenly. Now is not the time to make excuses. Surround this place and prepare for battle. Several figures draped in dark red cloaks quickly scattered in different directions, beginning to encircle the billowing smoke of the control room. Amidst the rolling flames, a figure in a silver robe stood within the reflection of shattered glass in the control room, coldly watching the scene. Pretty quick reaction. Too bad your time to die has come. The silver-robed oracle stepped forward, his figure passing through the mirror and directly shifting into the real world. In Lu Qiu's line of sight above the control room, a flash of light appeared, and a silver figure stood suspended in mid-air looking down at them. Feeling the aura emanating from this person, Lu Qiu's heart sank. A Klein realm expert? Currently the highest realm within Shenlong Pass was only Lu Qiu, the newly appointed vice-captain of Team 066 who had just stepped into the Sea realm. The others were mostly at the Chuan realm. After all, Shenlong Pass was still under construction and had not been officially put into use. It was merely responsible for monitoring the misty border. Faced with a suddenly appearing Klein realm expert, they had no chance of winning. Lu Qiu's expression was extremely serious. In the left eye of the floating figure, a silver halo emerged. Ants. The silver-robed oracle slowly spread his arms, and the shards of mirrors scattered across the ground flew up into the sky. He spoke in Japanese, "Kneel before the divine authority." The sky was filled with reflections of the blue sky, rapidly enlarging under the control of the silver-robed oracle. A shard of mirror the size of a fingernail instantly transformed into a sharp blade several dozen meters long, sweeping down toward the ground like a storm. At that moment a light gasp came from the sky. A line of green code flickered in the air, and in an instant the countless mirror shards were frozen in mid-air, as if someone had pressed the pause button, unable to fall even a fraction. The silver-robed oracle standing on one of the frozen mirror shards suddenly froze in surprise. He looked up at the sky and saw a figure in a brown checkered shirt and a black cap slowly descending onto one of the mirror shards amidst the frozen shards of mirrors. The figure lightly tapped the shard with their toes and floated down gracefully onto the shard above him. The person lowered their head, curiously examining the silver-robed oracle, their gaze firmly locked onto the silver halo in his left eye. "It's Mr. Guan." Lu Qiu saw the figure in the checkered shirt and immediately breathed a sigh of relief, a look of joy appearing on his face. Mr. Guan had arrived. All problems would no longer be problems. This was the sense of security brought by the ceiling. "Who are you?" Guan asked as he opened his mouth. "How did you sneak into Shenlong Pass?" "The silver-robed oracle?" The silver-robed oracle expressed that he did not understand what was being said. He looked at the mirror shards around him that had been frozen in place, a look of bewilderment appearing in his eyes. He tried to manipulate those shards, but no matter how hard he tried they remained locked in mid-air, unmoving. Was this the ability of the man in the checkered shirt? The silver-robed oracle's eyes sparkled with intensity. He stomped heavily on the mirror shard beneath him, using the terrifying strength of a modified human to shoot toward the figure above him like a cannonball. He flipped his hand, gripping a shard of mirror the size of a thumb, and a silver light flickered. In the next moment, this small shard transformed into an incredibly sharp mirror spear, the spear's body reflecting the light of the environment, making it nearly impossible to discern its position without careful observation. The silver-robed oracle soared toward the sky, his wrist flicking as the mirror spear shot from his hand like thunder, completely vanishing into the sky under the reflection of the mirrors he controlled. An invisible killing intent rapidly approached Guan. This was one of the silver-robed oracle's killing moves. With the spear's concealment and lethality, he could easily kill any expert of the same realm. Although he couldn't see through the man in the checkered shirt standing above him, he was certain that the opponent would not be able to withstand this strike. He believed he was already at the pinnacle of humanity, and the only one capable of withstanding this blow in all of Japan's human circle was probably the monster Yuzuriha Takahira. How could a small country with low combat power and average technology have an existence that could rival Yuzuriha Takahira? The corners of the silver-robed oracle's mouth curled slightly upward. Seeing the mysterious confidence appearing on the silver-robed oracle's face, Guan's expression suddenly turned strange. He casually tapped in the air for a moment, and lines of code flowed through the air like a tide, resembling a massive void screen. Filtering objects with mirror reflection capabilities within the target range. Filtering complete. Physical engine modification in progress. Physical engine modification complete. Captured 121 target objects. Kinetic energy cleared. Gravitational potential energy cleared. Administrator permissions locked. Selected object positions cannot be changed or destroyed. Whoosh. As the last character disappeared, An almost invisible spear suddenly froze in front of Guan, containing enough kinetic energy to penetrate most of Tokyo, now appearing like a quiet and docile work of art, silently suspended in the air. It was as if it had caught a bug in this world. Chapter 776, 12 minutes. Is it really the ability to control mirror-like objects? Guanzai touched the floating mirror spear in front of him with his finger, and it remained firmly embedded in the void, motionless. Seeing this scene, the silver-robed oracle below was left stunned, his mouth agape. What just happened? How did this spear suddenly stop? What unfolded before him completely exceeded the silver-robed oracle's understanding. The sudden appearance of the code in the void, along with the alteration of physical rules in the entire area, filled him with an overwhelming sense of unreality. How could this be possible? Before the silver-robed oracle could regain his composure, Guanzai raised his hand and tapped for a moment, and several lines of code flashed in the air. Target selected. Administrator privileges revoked. Target's motion capability restored. Modifying physical engine. Physical engine modification complete. Parameter preset. Target vector direction reversed. Kinetic energy doubled. Pointer direction locked. Starting operation. Guanzai gently lowered his finger. The mirror spear floating before him suddenly moved again. However, this time, it was not aimed at Guanzai but shot out in the opposite direction, directly targeting the silver-robed oracle who had thrown it. Boom! With the double kinetic energy boost, the mirror spear created a sonic boom in an instant, and an invisible shockwave rolled out from the air, reaching the silver-robed oracle in the blink of an eye. The silver-robed oracle's pupils constricted suddenly. Using the enhanced physical abilities granted by his modifications, he quickly dodged to the side, but the mirror spear seemed to have locked onto him completely, changing direction and following him as it aimed for his chest. Boom! The mirror spear fell and a deafening explosion echoed from within the Deep Dragon Pass. The invisible shockwave blew the clothes of several nearby sentinels and military personnel into disarray. They struggled to stabilize themselves against the wind while watching the battlefield in shock, their eyes filled with awe. As expected of Mr. Guan, this is a complete crushing victory. As the thick smoke gradually dissipated, amidst the chaos, a slender, sharp mirror spear was deeply embedded in the ground, its tip pinning down a portion of the silver-robed oracle's body and a metallic arm to the earth. The metallic skeleton had been completely deformed, with faint electric sparks dancing across its surface. But most of the silver-robed oracle's body had vanished. Escaped. Guanzai was momentarily taken aback upon seeing this scene. He scanned the surroundings and confirmed that the person had not actually fled the Deep Dragon Pass, revealing a look of surprise in his eyes. How did he escape? After hesitating for a moment, Guanzai pressed down his cap and lightly leaped into the deep pit created by the spear. Inside the pit, there was indeed no sign of the silver-robed oracle. Guanzai frowned slightly. He raised his hand again and began tapping in the void. Activating administrator privileges, retrieving background data. Moments later, a flood of dense code cascaded before Guanzai's eyes. He looked up at the code, his pupils vibrating at a high frequency, seemingly reading the information contained within. This code represented everything that had happened in this area over the past 5 seconds, essentially the historical record. By analyzing this historical record presented in code form, Guanzai could deduce everything that had occurred at a certain point in the past, including the entire process of the mirror disaster's escape. A few seconds later, Guanzai seemed to have discovered something, and a look of realization appeared in his eyes. The physical engine was altered. That person passed through the mirror into another world? Guanzai turned around and looked at a piece of shattered mirror on the ground not far away, walking over to pick it up. He ran pretty fast. Guanzai sighed. Through coding he could indeed change the rules within an area, but entering the mirror world was impossible. He couldn't track the mirror disaster in the mirror world, but someone could. It seemed it was time to find a certain delivery person. Guanzai tucked the piece of mirror into his pocket and walked out of the pit, scanning over to Lu Qiu and the others not far away, asking, "You all, no one is injured, right?" No, thanks to Mr. Guan arriving in time, none of yous were hurt." Lu Qiu stepped forward, respectfully addressing Guanzai. "I am Lu Qiu, the deputy captain of the original Night Watch Team 066. currently serving as the temporary commander of this Deep Dragon Pass. Thank you for your hard work. Guanzai nodded slightly. Since the matter has been resolved, I'll take my leave. This mysterious person's background is not simple. We must capture him as soon as possible. Understood. After a brief farewell to Lu Qiu and the others, lines of code floated out from Guanzai's body, and he vanished from the spot in a flash. Lu Qiu looked at the wreckage of the communication tower and the control room, letting out a helpless sigh. Send the repair team over to restore communications first, then fix the control room. Lu Qiu turned to glance at the misty border outside the steel walls, speaking solemnly. We are on the front line of the misty border. We must restore communication with headquarters at all costs. Otherwise, if something really happens, we won't be able to relay any information. 3 hours. If communications aren't restored within 3 hours, let the repair team resign. Is it really that urgent? A military expert approached, somewhat puzzled. The last large-scale, mysterious invasion was half a year ago. Even if there is a second beast tide, it can't be so coincidental that it happens just as our communications fail, right? Lu Qiu frowned, stepping closer to the expert. Are you joking with me? The expert stood frozen. What? Lu Qiu extended his hand, pointing in a direction behind the Deep Dragon Pass, speaking coldly. More than 300 kilometers beyond this pass are several crucial coastal cities of the Great Xia. If the beast tide breaks through the border and we fail to relay the message in time, there will be a 12-minute information vacuum. Do you know what those 12 minutes represent? Lu Qiu took a deep breath and slowly said, in the 3rd minute, the beast tide will cross the sea area and appear at the edge of the coastal cities. In the 5th minute, 7 coastal cities will be completely destroyed by the beast tide, with up to 90 million citizens buried within, countless families shattered, and centuries of urban accumulation obliterated in an instant. In the 12th minute, 2 provinces will fall, with casualties beyond counting. If it weren't for Captain Wang Mian of the Mask team traveling back in time half an hour before the first disaster-level beast tide appeared, foreseeing that disaster and several special teams working together with humanity's top forces, what I just mentioned about those 12 minutes would be the situation that Great Xia would ultimately face. The expert was left speechless, and after a long while he finally asked in confusion. But, don't we have deities overseeing us in Great Xia? Chapter 777. The Chubby Timeline. A gentle breeze swept over the chaotic scene at the Qianlong Pass, as Lu Qiu stared at the expert before him, remaining silent. After a long while he closed his eyes and turned to walk towards the city wall at the forefront of Qianlong Pass. Having faith and relying on the divine are two different matters. If one only knows to depend on the gods for everything, humanity will eventually face the consequences of its actions. Moreover, the Great Xia deity is our last trump card. If the communication system isn't repaired in 3 hours, the rescue team can get lost. If you have any objections or dissatisfaction with my orders, you can file a complaint with headquarters once communication is restored. I will accept all education and criticism from headquarters. As the dark red cloak faded into the distance, his voice gradually dissipated in the howling winds over the sea. Up ahead is the misty border. The cloud of transformation streaked across the sky, and Lin Chia looked at the rolling mist in the distance and spoke. We're finally reaching the Great Xia. Bai Li Pengpeng's eyes sparkled with excitement. I wonder what expression Commander Yi will have when he sees us return. By the way, has the Xia sect already reported our performance in the human circle to the Night Watchers? Will we be awarded honors? Honors are a certainty, Chao Yuan said confidently. We broke through the human circle of the high heaven and completely destroyed the divine authority. A collective Star C medal is guaranteed. I heard Instructor Yuan Gang say that in the past 10 years, it seems only that the masked team has received the Star C medal? Bai Li Pengpeng grinned. I remember how impressive the masked team seemed to us back in the training camp. I never expected that just a few years later, we have already become equals with them. I wonder what their expressions will be when they see us, their juniors, standing on stage in Shangjing City, receiving the second Star C medal of the past decade. Bai Li Pengpeng gazed up at the distant sky as if envisioning a scene, the corners of his mouth involuntarily lifting. Lin Chia, Shin Qingzhu and Chao Yuan exchanged glances and smiled. By the way, Pengpeng, Lin Chia seemed to remember something. I haven't asked you yet. When you were in Japan, you were the first to land in the human circle. What exactly happened back then? Why were you on that mat in the ruins? Bai Li Pangpang scratched his head, recalling carefully. When I was washed ashore, I thought of the knowledge I learned in the training camp and could roughly guess where this was. But it was strange. The timeline here didn't seem to match what I was familiar with. Timeline. Lin Chia keenly caught the key point. What time did you land? Using the measurement method in the human circle, it should be the 51st year after the gods of high heaven created the human circle? Bai Li Pangpang said uncertainly. The 51st year of the new era. Lin Chia's pupils slightly constricted. Hearing this, and Qingyu, Chao Yuan and Jiang Er also frowned simultaneously. I find that year very strange, Bai Li Pangpang continued, oblivious to the change in expressions around him. If the gods of high heaven created the human circle, when the mist descended, then by reverse deduction, the mist must have arrived 51 years ago. This doesn't add up. According to Great Xia's historical records, the mist clearly descended over 100 years ago. How could it have been over 50 years ago? After Bai Li Pangpang finished speaking, he looked up and saw the strange expressions on everyone's faces, slightly taken aback. What are you all looking like that for? Pangpang, the timeline isn't wrong. Lin Chia spoke slowly. The mist did indeed descend over 100 years ago, and the human circle of high heaven also appeared over 100 years ago. The reason you feel the timeline is off is that you were sent back in time over 50 years earlier than us. Upon hearing this, Bai Li Pangpang fell into confusion. I was sent back over 50 years? Bai Li Pangpang was puzzled. How is that possible? Over 50 years ago, not only had our team not been formed yet, but I hadn't even been born. Besides, if I really went back 50 years, I should be an old man with white hair by now, right? What Chia said is correct. And Qingyu adjusted her glasses. We landed in the 101st year of the new era, while your timeline is clearly much earlier than ours. As for why you haven't aged after 50 years, I don't know either. It must be because of that mat, Lin Chia speculated. When I sat on it before, I noticed that the Aurora River flowing through the mat had a strange power that could make one's perception of time very vague. I initially thought it was just a difference in perception, but now it seems that the Aurora River might indeed have the effect of slowing down the flow of time. And Qingyu continued to ask, and then? What happened after you landed? After I landed, I felt something calling to me, Bai Li Pangpang recalled seriously. It was a strange feeling as if something was whispering in my ear, urging me to find it quickly. But I was having too much fun and just ignored it. You ignored it? Lin Chia was taken aback. Yeah. Bai Li Pangpang said matter-of-factly. It's like walking on a mountain path and suddenly hearing a stranger on the opposite peak calling your name, asking you to find him. Would you really climb over a mountain to meet him? That would be a waste of time. Lin Chia. You make a valid point. I was just thinking about finding you guys quickly, so I wandered around everywhere. I walked from Kansai all the way to Kanto, learned a bit of the language and even got wanted. Those who called themselves the oracles would occasionally cause me trouble, but I dealt with them using forbidden items and then ran away. They couldn't catch up to me. Anyway, I had a pretty good time along the way. Oh, I also happened to steal a purple. What was it called? A disaster blade? I can't remember, but I got it and couldn't pull it out, so I just tossed it in my pocket. In the end, I arrived near Hokkaido. Bai Li Pangpang continued. After reaching Hokkaido, I felt that whispering voice growing stronger. In the following days, it seriously disturbed my sleep. By that time, I had basically explored all of Japan and had nothing else to do, so I simply followed that whispering voice to find the ruins. Eventually arriving in front of that palace, opened the door and walked in. What happened afterward, I don't remember. When I opened my eyes again, I was on that bed in the clubhouse, seeing the note you left, Chia. After listening to Bai Li Pangpang's account, Lin Chia couldn't help but feel a bit emotional. Compared to the arduous experiences of others in the human circle, Pangpang's journey felt more like a travelogue. Eating, drinking, fighting, sitting on the mat and then waking up 50 years later.